Hi, I'm Raylene. My parents gave me an ultimatum. Show up to my golden brother's wedding or get cut off completely. But that was just the beginning. They didn't want me there to celebrate. They wanted me quiet, invisible, obedient. What they didn't know was, I wasn't coming back to fit in. I came to uncover the truth. A fake fiancé. A family that turned its back. And a secret they trusted a stranger with, instead of their own daughter. How do you survive a family that only loves you when you're silent? I was halfway through revising a budget proposal when my father's name lit up my phone for the 5th time. I didn't need to pick up to know what it was about. Gavin's wedding. Again. I let the phone vibrate across the glass surface of my desk, its slick modernity a stark contrast to the chaos it signaled. For a year, I'd kept my distance. Denver gave me space, structure, peace. But my family had a way of slipping through cracks I thought I'd sealed. When the buzzing finally stopped, it was replaced by a sharp ding, an email. I glanced down. The subject line made my stomach tighten. Your presence is expected. Final notice. I opened it. Cold legal language greeted me. Attendance at Gavin's wedding is non-negotiable. Failure to comply will result in revocation of your inheritance. Consider this your final opportunity to demonstrate family loyalty. They didn't even try to hide it behind pleasantries. It wasn't an invitation. It was a threat. I leaned back in my chair, heart steady but heavy. The absurdity wasn't in the threat, it was in the assumption. They still believed I needed something from them. I didn't. Still, I stared at the message longer than I meant to. Then came the second hit. A forwarded voicemail from my HR manager. I clicked it. Hi, this is Cynthia, Raylene's mother. I'm calling because she's refusing to come home, and we're concerned. Could someone please talk to her about taking some time off? This is a family emergency. My blood ran cold. She'd crossed the line from guilt-tripping to professional sabotage. Calling my job? Who the hell does that? The rage didn't boil. It calcified. I wasn't a teenager sneaking out of the house anymore. I was a 34-year-old woman with a 6-figure salary and a resume they never acknowledged. But that didn't matter to them, because Gavin, their golden boy, was getting married, and I was the only loose thread in their perfect tapestry. I opened my closet and pulled out my diploma. Summa cum laude, data science, University of Chicago. Still hidden behind coats like a secret. My eyes drifted to the calendar on the wall. The wedding week was marked in red, angry ink. I remembered what Mom once told me after I won a regional science fair. Don't outshine your brother, sweetie. It makes him feel small. She'd said it like it was reasonable, like it was my fault for being visible. I shut my laptop, opened a private browser, and booked a first-class ticket to Franklin. Not because they demanded it, not because I wanted to be part of Gavin's big day, but because I knew something was off. They wanted me there to stay quiet. I was going back, to see, not to belong. The drive from the airport into Franklin was lined with dogwoods in full bloom. Everything looked postcard perfect, exactly how they wanted it. I didn't expect a welcome committee, but I wasn't prepared for how casual my arrival would be. The front door opened before I could knock. My mother, cordless phone on one shoulder, clipboard in hand, glanced at me like I was the mail. Raylene, good. Put your bags in the laundry room and check the list on the fridge, she said, barely pausing before walking away mid-sentence. I didn't get a hug. I didn't even get eye contact. Inside, the house had been overtaken by soft pastels, faux gold accents, and those annoyingly inspirational cursive signs. Love is patient, love is kind. Funny, no one here practiced either. A half hour later, while I was quietly folding programs on the back porch, Mom announced in front of aunts and second cousins, Raylene's helping with logistics. She's been so generous with her time. No mention of bridesmaid, not even a seat assignment at the rehearsal dinner. Verity smirked. Gavin said nothing. I had become staff. Later that afternoon, while cleaning fingerprints off mason jars, I checked my phone and saw a Facebook post from my father. So proud of Gavin. Send your love his way during this special time. Some people sadly chose not to support him, but love always wins. I didn't reply. I just screenshotted it. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years DM'd me, "Why are you being so selfish? Gavin deserves happiness. Don't ruin it." That night, I walked past the old hallway where our family photos used to hang. Gavin's most improved tennis player plaque still shone under the hallway light. My debate trophies, mathletes plaques, my scholarship award, gone. Still in a dusty box, last I checked. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. Instead, I helped hang banners, tied bows, counted candles. But as I watched Verity on the patio posing for her sunset selfies, something about her didn't add up. Too perfect, too rehearsed. That night, while the others were asleep, I sat on the guest bed with my laptop, opened an incognito window, and typed her name. What I found didn't match her story. The loading bar crawled across my screen as the page refreshed. I was deep in it now, 2 hours past midnight, the house still except for the hum of the ceiling fan. Her LinkedIn page was a joke, no college listed, a title like Strategic Financial Consultant with no real firm attached. The business name she used, Arbor Nexus, didn't show up in any official state registry, just a website with stock photos and 3 sentences. I dug deeper. I searched through business filings, digital footprints, anything tied to her email. That's when the aliases started appearing. Melissa K. Langford, Olivia Sherwin. Each linked to investment forums full of complaints, all women posting stories that sounded eerily similar. Whirlwind romance, flashy promises, and then emptied accounts. I didn't need a smoking gun. I already had the fire. One name popped up more than once, Judith P. Schaefer. She'd posted in a closed thread about an Olivia Sherwin who vanished days before her wedding, taking $38,000 and a family heirloom ring. I found an old email address tied to the account and took a chance. 5 minutes later, my laptop buzzed with a video call. The woman who appeared on screen looked tired, guarded. "I'm not giving you anything unless I know who you are." I turned the webcam slightly toward my screen and pulled up a picture of Verity. Judith froze. "That's her," she whispered. "She said her name was Olivia. She told my mother she'd never worn a ring so special. 2 days later, both were gone." The sadness in her voice didn't beg for pity. It warned me. I ended the call, saved the recording, and backed everything up. Local, cloud, encrypted. If I'd taken this to my parents, they'd say I was jealous. If I told Gavin, he'd ask why I was always trying to ruin things. So I waited, listened, calculated. The next morning, I passed through the kitchen on my way to the front porch. Verity was already seated with my mom, sipping tea and laughing like she'd grown up in this house. My father walked in behind them, patting her shoulder. "She's the best thing that's ever happened to Gavin," he said, like it was scripture. I smiled. She certainly knows how to make an impression. But inside, I had already drawn my line. After breakfast, I asked everyone to gather in the living room under the pretense of reviewing the wedding schedule. They shuffled in slowly, Mom with her notepad, Dad with his mug, Gavin yawning, and Verity in a silk robe like she'd woken up in a spa, not my parents' guest room. I stood in front of them, tablet in hand, and said calmly, "This won't take long, but it's important." I tapped the screen. First, Verity's fake LinkedIn profile. Second, the non-existent business she claimed to co-found. Third, aliases she'd used. Melissa Langford, Olivia Sherwin. "Recognize those names?" I asked. No one spoke. Then I pulled up a clip of Judith confirming everything. Her voice cracked as she said, "She disappeared 2 days before the wedding. My mother's ring, 38 grand, gone." I looked at Gavin. "Sound familiar?" He blinked, then looked down. Cynthia broke first. "Raylene, what is this? What's the point of all this? Are you seriously trying to ruin this week?" "This is about protecting our family," I replied. "You mean tearing it apart?" She snapped. "Your brother finally finds someone and you, jealous as always, show up with your spreadsheets and suspicions." Dad didn't even look at me. He slapped a folder shut. "You've always believed you're the smartest person in the room. Maybe this time try just being supportive." Verity didn't defend herself. She didn't need to. She just leaned back and said, "A lot of accusations for someone who's been invisible for what, 10 years? No one defended me. Not even Gavin. I walked out before I said something I'd regret. The sky outside matched my mood. Heavy, gray, on the edge of a storm. I took the gravel trail behind the house. I used to come here to cry when I was a kid. This time I didn't cry. I remembered every time they'd told me to be quiet, to stop making trouble, to not embarrass them. But they didn't embarrass easily. They ignored. They erased. I paused under the old oak tree and sent a quick message. Judith, stay ready. I might need your voice again. That evening, I helped decorate the tent. Fairy lights, name cards, floral runners. I played the role. I smiled. But behind the performance, I was documenting everything. Photos, timelines, Verity's inconsistencies. They wanted a silent daughter. What they had was a strategist. By the time the house fell silent, I was still wide awake, sitting in the corner of the guest room, the glow of my screen the only light. The folder I'd swiped from Dad's office earlier that day lay open beside me. Statements, refinancing notices, credit pull reports. They told me what words never would. Verity had already gained access to their accounts. She'd done this before. The timeline matched. Then it hit me. Austin. 3 months ago. I was speaking at a tech conference about fraud prevention in fintech startups. She'd approached me after my panel, introduced herself as someone interested in scaling impact through crypto. Her tone was polite, charming even. How do you protect yourself financially? She'd asked with a smile. Ever feel vulnerable being in a field like that? I thought it was curiosity. Now I know it was an assessment. That wasn't a first meeting. That was recon. She targeted Gavin after she vetted me. At the rehearsal venue later that morning, I caught her alone, fluffing floral centerpieces near the stage. I approached with calm I didn't feel. I remember Austin, I said quietly. Her hands didn't stop moving. Cute town. You asked about my finances. I lowered my voice. You were testing the room. You wanted to know if I was a threat. She turned her head slightly. And were you? Big mistake, I said. You picked the wrong family, the wrong sister. Verity didn't blink. Then show your hand, or fold. Either way, I walk that aisle tomorrow. I held her stare for 2 full seconds before walking away. Back in the car, I opened my secure folder, uploaded 2 files, and texted my lawyer. 1 video compilation of her aliases, with dates and facial recognition matches. 1 spreadsheet tying her digital footprint to Gavin's bank activity. I wasn't trying to stop the wedding anymore. I was preparing to win everything that came after. The wind picked up just as I stepped onto the stone patio where the rehearsal dinner was underway. Strings of lights swayed overhead, flickering like nerves. I'd matched the dress code, navy and silver, and even wore the earrings Cynthia gave me at 16. The smile I wore wasn't real, but it was practiced. I moved through the crowd like a ghost with purpose, smiling at neighbors who forgot my name, nodding at relatives who still thought I lived somewhere in tech. The iPad stayed zipped in my clutch, until Verity stood and raised her glass. Gavin and I believe in honesty, she began, voice sugar smooth. Not perfection, just showing up for each other without judgment or the past weighing us down. I stood. Gavin's eyes darted. Verity's narrowed. I didn't clear my throat. I didn't make a scene. I tapped my screen. A nearby TV screen flickered, then mirrored my tablet. A video played. Verity, no, Melissa, laughing with a man at a private dinner. Olivia Sherwin accepting a check. A scrolling list of flagged aliases and financial reports. A hush swept the crowd. Gavin's champagne glass slipped from his hand. Cynthia gasped. Walter's face went pale. No one moved. Verity didn't run. She looked right at me. You just ruined the only good thing this family ever had. No, I said quietly. I just saved the only thing I ever had left. My dignity. Then I turned toward the guests. Not just my family. You can believe what you want, but facts don't care how charming someone looks in a white dress. No apology, no plea, just truth. And then I left, calm. I didn't ruin their evening. I revealed the truth. What they do with it now is their own undoing. The air in the dining room was dense, like it had been soaked in the residue of arguments never spoken aloud. Still, suffocating. Not even the ticking of the antique wall clock dared to cut through it. Plates sat full and untouched in front of each person at the table. Steam curled gently from the teapot, unnoticed. The windows were fogged over from the rain that had poured through the night, as though the silence in the house had clung to the glass and refused to let the morning in. I walked in without waiting for an invitation. None was coming. I didn't expect a smile or even eye contact. Gavin was already there, seated stiffly at the table. His fingers were interlocked on the linen tablecloth, his shoulders drawn in like he was bracing himself for a blow. My mother sat next to him, back straight as a board, hands folded tightly in her lap. Her eyes were swollen and red-rimmed, like she'd been crying, but her mouth was set in a thin, hard line. My father didn't look up from his plate. He didn't have to. I could feel his disapproval like a spotlight aimed square at my spine. I walked to the counter, picked up the coffee pot, and poured myself a cup. Slowly, intentionally. Every movement was deliberate, measured. I wanted them to feel how calm I was, how composed, because inside, I was boiling. I took the seat farthest from them, the one at the end of the table, like a guest, like an outsider. Gavin cracked first. Of course he did. I knew, he said quietly. Not everything, but enough. I saw the bank statements, the weird charges, money missing, things that didn't add up. I looked at him, expressionless. You didn't want to believe me. Just say that. His eyes dropped to the table. You didn't want to see it. Because seeing it meant facing what she did, what you let happen. So instead, you turned your back and let me take the fall. I wasn't sure, he said, and I didn't want to make things worse. No, I said, my voice calm but cutting. You didn't want to make things harder for her. You let me become the problem, the scapegoat, the one who made everything uncomfortable. My mother's voice broke the stillness. We just wanted Gavin to be okay, she said, barely above a whisper. He's been through enough. I stared at her, blinking in disbelief. And I haven't? Her mouth opened, but no words came. She looked down. That's when my father stood. His chair scraped loudly against the hardwood floor. It felt intentional. This is a family matter, he said coldly. It should have stayed private. I let out a dry, bitter laugh. That's exactly why I went public. Because in this family, privacy just means silence. It means pretending nothing's wrong until someone breaks. No one interrupted. I brought you all proof, I said. Not speculation, not guesses. Documents, records. And still, you turned away. You didn't want the truth. You wanted quiet. And I've never been quiet enough for you. Gavin stayed silent, his jaw clenched. Not a single word in my defense. I stood slowly. My chair made no noise. The room was still frozen in place, like if no one moved, none of this would be real. I'm done playing the role you assigned me, the difficult one, the dramatic one, the one who always makes it about themselves. I glanced at each of them. I didn't burn this bridge. I just finally stopped pretending it was still standing. My mother's voice wavered again. Please don't walk out like this. We're still your family. I paused at the doorway. My hand brushed the frame. I didn't turn around at first, just stared at the hallway that led to the front door, the way out. You had 1,000 chances to stop me from walking out like this, I said, but every time you made it clear, I was never really one of you. And with that, I stepped out, not just of the room or the house, but out of the version of myself they'd all insisted I be. The one who stayed silent, the one who kept the peace, the one who was always too much or not enough. This wasn't a dramatic exit, this was a release, and for once, the silence behind me wasn't mine to carry. The door clicked shut behind me like the last word in a long argument. But I didn't keep walking. The air outside was heavy, thick with the scent of rain still clinging to the pavement. Dusk blurred the edges of everything, the trees, the street, the sagging porch behind me. A low rumble of thunder rolled somewhere in the distance, slowly fading. I stood still, listening. Then I turned around. I walked back up the steps, opened the door, and stepped into the living room like I belonged there. Like I hadn't just declared my exit. The temperature inside hadn't changed, but the atmosphere had. Eyes turned to me with a mix of shock and dread. They hadn't expected me to come back. Not so soon, not like this. Walter was still in his armchair, shoulders locked in that familiar military posture, like sitting still was a form of discipline. Cynthia was wiping at her eyes, pretending it was dust or allergies, anything but the truth. Gavin looked up briefly, then back down. His silence was predictable by now, his favorite defense. I didn't wait for them to speak. I stepped forward and set 3 identical manila folders on the coffee table, their corners aligned with the edge like pieces on a game board. This wasn't a conversation. It was a presentation. Cynthia blinked. What is this now? My terms, I said. My voice was level, unreadable. You don't have to agree with them, but you will read them. No one moved to open the folders. I remained standing. Inside each folder was a carefully constructed plan, pages I had spent the last few weeks assembling with lawyers and financial advisors, a detailed breakdown of the family's assets and liabilities, a revised financial structure to secure long-term stability, legal clauses protecting my independence and rights to any shared property, and, at the center of it all, a signed acknowledgement of how I'd been marginalized, dismissed, and used for years. Not an apology, just truth, in writing. Walter leaned forward slightly, one brow raised in disbelief. You can't just walk in here and lay down ultimatums. I met his glare without flinching. I can when I'm the only one who didn't hand over access to the house account to a stranger. Cynthia's head snapped up. What are you talking about? I pulled a stapled packet from my coat pocket and set it down next to the folders. A printed transaction log. Dozens of unexplained withdrawals and transfers. Verity had joint access to the family account. You didn't even know her maiden name, but you trusted her with your retirement. The silence that followed was absolute. Walter's face went slack. Cynthia's mouth fell open. Gavin looked like he might speak for the first time in hours, but no words came. He just sat there, hollowed out. I warned you, I said, voice calm but firm. I tried to bring this to your attention. I tried reasoning. You dismissed me every time. So now it's on paper. There are terms, protections, decisions to be made. I let the weight of that settle. You either fix this with me, I continued, or you fix it without a dime of my help, financial or otherwise. They didn't argue, not this time. There were no accusations, no raised voices, just quiet resignation. Walter reached for the pen first. His hand trembled as he signed, and for the first time in my life, he didn't hide it. Cynthia followed after a long pause, her signature hesitant but complete. Gavin was last. He signed without comment, without even lifting his eyes to mine. I collected the folders, slipped them into my briefcase, and set a labeled flash drive on the table. It was for our lawyer, a copy of everything, including their signatures. Before I left, I turned to face them one last time. This isn't reconciliation, I said, my voice clear. This is containment, damage control. I'll help you get out of this mess. But I'm not pretending to be your daughter anymore. Not in the way you've defined it. They didn't stop me. I stepped out into the night, rain starting again, soft and steady, and closed the door behind me for the second and final time. Maybe they still didn't see me. Maybe they never would. But I saw myself now, fully, and I wasn't invisible anymore. I didn't rush the flight home. I took a layover on purpose, spent 2 hours in silence at an airport coffee bar, and let the weight of it all settle. When I finally stepped into my apartment, Denver looked brighter than I remembered. The next morning, a voicemail waited. Gavin's voice was flat. She's gone 2 days ago, no warning. She took Mom's ring and the joint account's been wiped. Cops can't do much, no marriage license, no prenup, nothing. I didn't save the message out of spite. I saved it out of habit, into a folder labeled Lessons. Later that week, Aunt Marjorie texted updates in bullet points like she was filing a report. Cynthia's in therapy, Walter's trying insurance but denied, Gavin's taking a leave of absence. I didn't reply, but I felt, still. They weren't monsters, just believers in a story that never included me. In my home office, I finally hung my framed diploma, summa cum laude in data science. It had sat in storage for years. Now it owned a wall. That afternoon, I led a workshop for first-gen college girls. One of them stayed behind. You make me feel like I'm allowed to matter, she said, even when nobody else thinks I do. My throat tightened. That's because you do, I told her. You always have. I still journal every Friday. I still haven't returned any calls from Tennessee, and Gavin's number remains blocked. But a letter arrived last week, from the bank. Their home won't be foreclosed. My structure plan worked. I smiled, not for the win, but because they didn't need to thank me. That was never the goal. I didn't get the family I wanted, but I got clarity, and peace, and me, and that's enough. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't leaving people who hurt you, It's realizing they may never understand why you had to. I didn't walk away for revenge. I walked away because healing can't grow where denial still lives. If you've ever felt unseen in your own family, like your silence was expected and your truth was inconvenient, I want you to know your value isn't up for debate. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to be heard. And maybe you're still in that house, still sitting at that table, biting your tongue. Just know, one day you'll find the strength to choose yourself. And when you do, you won't regret it. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been the invisible one in your family? Or had to walk away to protect your peace? If this story spoke to you, drop a 1 in the comments or tell me what state you're watching from. And hey, if you made it this far, it means the story mattered. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got more powerful stories coming your way. Real voices, real choices. See you in the next one.